And I would like to share with you a little bit about spiritualism. There was a lot of stuff that was going on, and with the investigations of spiritualism, some groups began forming. And in this particular instance, this is the Psychological Society. It formed in Philadelphia, and it came together while these investigative events were taking place in New York. Uh, Remember that, well, I'm not sure if they're referring to New York City or the state of New York, because there was nothing here to indicate that. But, remember that in Auburn at the Corinthian Hall, the Fox sisters had been submitted to investigations. And it was recently that I learned that the two that were there, if I recall correctly, were Leah, the oldest sister, who was married at the time. Of course, you know how history is. And one of the younger sisters, I believe Kate, but don't quote me on that. But anyway, during that, this group had formed and was one of the groups that formed, and they began meeting as a circle for development or for communication. We call it meeting for development. They call it for communication. And they met for 4 months. Now, this was 4 months of sitting. We don't know if they sat weekly, twice a week, 3 times a week, but it was 4 months before anything took place. And, I'm not sure how my notes may have gotten messed up here, but it states that on March 16 in 1852, a message came through from these sittings. And the message was that the object of spirit communication was for the advancement of the human race. And those who were fortunate to witness the phenomena were to work towards the temporal and spiritual advancement of others. Now, much of the research I've been doing recently has just focused on the phenomenal aspect, but I am being drawn toward the philosophical aspect. And the only way we can encounter any of that is through channeled material, such as Paul Selig's book. I believe there's a series of them. We did I Am Word, and now we're doing the Book of Love and Creation. Alice Bailey, her material is channeled material from one of the yogis. I forget which one she was working with. If anybody's familiar with Helena Blavatsky, she founded the Theosophical Society. She's well known for her work in the secret doctrine. Much of her material is channeled. And there is plenty more there that is also channeled. And I can only make the assumption that this is what this message is referring to work towards the temporal and spiritual advancement of others. Because it's through much of this work where I have advanced myself and my understanding and discoveries in what we call the spiritual realm. So, and the group, well, let me see here. From this group, under the direction of spirit, members formed 6 circles, one of which became the Harmonial Benevolent Association. And unfortunately, this group lacked the necessary funds to continue, so it was short-lived. Yeah. Are there any comments or questions that any of you would like to add?
Yeah, I would just add that as you find and read this channeled material, the thing that has always struck me is the similarity of the message being presented, oftentimes presented in what on the at first looks like a different approach until you begin to understand what's being presented, and then you realize they're describing the same thing that another source may be describing. And to me, that is the hallmark of truth as you find it. That and and in the times that I have shared the things of my own understanding, if someone comes up to me and says, "Oh, you must have read so and so's book," and I say, "Well, I haven't read that," that is a confirmation that, however, I was getting my conclusion was in a similar place, and it's kind of a validation because I think there is a divine truth there, and there are just unlimited ways of describing it. And I think you're right on track. That is the exact direction that we should go.
Thank you. If I recall, now don't quote me on this because I've never read the book, but if I recall, the Course in Miracles, which is very popular, that too is a type of channeled material.
Yeah, it's totally channeled. Interestingly, it's channeled through a Jewish atheist professor who died not believing any of it. And so you probably can't find a more neutral. She had no choice but to simply pass it on exactly as she heard it. And the book took on a life of its own. So interesting how these things happen.
Yep. And if anybody's familiar with Neil Walsh, his Conversations with God, that too is channeled material. So there's plenty of it available. And as Arthur Conan Doyle had mentioned about the higher teachings, within these channeled books, within all this material that's there, that's already out there, that's being presented, these are the higher teachings. And the goal, from what I've gathered from it, I'm sure Reverend Thomas could correct me if I'm wrong, is for us to think differently, to think more inclusively, to move to a different, for lack of a better way of putting it, to move to a different vibration, to a different frequency. And with all of this comes a sense of accepting. And with that sense of accepting, a new realization. At least that's the way it's been for myself. So, would anyone else like to add something? In that case, I'm going to say thank you for allowing me to share that, and thank you, Reverend Thomas, for adding more to it.